Hey guys, what's up? Today in the Brick Lab we're going to be upgrading Jay Nya's EVO race car. So like most of these EVO sets, they look slightly better in person than they do on the box art. In fact, this looks kind of like a scrapped Speed Champions design. Obviously it's a little bit rough around the edges and it definitely needs a lot of work. But one thing I really love about this thing is the way they integrated these stud shooters into the hood so that they can basically pop out like concealed weapons. It really kind of brings me back to my childhood with the whole agents theme or spy theme. In fact, this whole vehicle just screams Secret Agent Ninja, and if I was a kid, I'd be all over that. Not really the point I was going with. Anyway, the point is this thing does need some work, especially on the sides and on the front, maybe a little bit on the back, but we'll just take a look and see how that goes. Anyway, yeah, later videos. Anyway, let's get this thing upgraded. Alright, so here's Jay's upgraded Speed Champions vehicle. As you can see, I removed the ridiculous blades from the front. It did kind of look like a mustache though, and I did want to keep that aesthetic, so I did put some golden machetes here, so now you have these two eyes with either a ridiculous grimace or a mustache, however you want to see that. I also, of course, smoothed out the hood design a bit here. Changed up the color scheme for the rims here since it just kind of seemed really out of place to have that yellow here. Also, of course, by replacing that yellow slope, I was able to make it blend a little more seamlessly in with the rest of the body here. Of course, I couldn't get rid of these blades that were on the front all the way, so I left them in on the side here as extra weapons, because I figure since Jay's probably going to be plowing through a whole swarm of snake warriors in this thing, he's probably going to want to have some weapons on the side, so these blades can fully retract out, and there you go, he can totally destroy the kneecaps of the snake army, if minifigures had kneecaps. But they do also kind of remind me of wings, so I guess he could also use them as that to maybe help boost him over giant gaps or the rooftops of buildings or whatever kind of scrapes he's going to get into in this thing. Of course, since they aren't hinges, you could literally leave these things extended out, basically in any direction, whatever you think looks good for a ninja vehicle. And then another tiny change I made on the back here was replacing those ridiculous go-kart looking blades with some exhaust pipes on the end here. It's a tiny little change, but I think it makes the vehicle look a whole lot more serious and a whole lot more battle ready. Of course, I did leave in the flag, but I did shorten it a little bit. Of course, if you want to take it off, you can. All you have to do is just pull off this bad robot arm and throw it away. There you go. That said, though, I think the car strangely does look a little bit empty without that flag sitting there, so I'm definitely just going to leave it in place for now. And then another somewhat major change I made was to the little jet in the back. I know it was Nya themed on purpose, but I switched it over to a more Jay color scheme to match the Stormfighter that he got way back in 2012, because as far as I'm concerned, that's one of Jay's peak vehicles, and you can't get any better than that. Of course, I did leave the sword blades on here so that you can move them around, pose them to your heart's content, and of course these blades are also on sockets now, so you could switch them up to whatever configuration looks best for you. Of course, if you want, a ninja could still use this as a jetpack or a little microfighter or whatever. Or if you want, you could just use this thing as a drone and it doesn't need minifigures at all. I don't know. It's really up to you. This is Lego. Anyway, that's it for our look at Jay's upgraded vehicle here. If you want to build it, let's go, I guess. Alright, so here we are kind of in mid-transition here between the builds, and I figured the easiest way to do it would be just to render out some step-by-steps for like the jet and the front bumper here, and maybe even the sides, and then just show you guys how to put it together, so that way we don't have a repeat of the Lloyd's race car debacle. So first things first here, I'm going to change up a few things before we get into how to build the sides. If you want, what we can do first off is to tear off the sides. I'm assuming that yours still look like the original, but yeah, tear those off anyway. And then what you can do is disconnect your hood. Yours probably isn't modified yet, but that's okay. Next up, you're going to take this front section and rip that off too. And it's okay, it's just connected by Technic pins, so it should be pretty easy. And let's move over to the back here. And as you can see, the wheels are kind of pretty ugly. They have this recessed thing with an exposed Technic pin. The way I fixed it was to pull it off and basically just turn them around. Now, I would recommend putting in a couple of Technic bushings that looks sort of like this. That way when you put the wheel back on, it doesn't slide all the way to the end and get jammed up. So there's that. Oh, another thing you can do real quick is to replace the pale yellow corner wedge plates like this and replace them with these blue wedge plates and yellow plate here. If you want, you could leave them in the cool yellow color, but I prefer the blue because I think it matches better with the back. Speaking of back, let's go to the back here. What I'm also going to do is remove these Technic blades. Again, as I mentioned earlier, they really make this thing look like a go-kart for some reason, and I'm not a fan. What I did instead was replace them with these exhaust pieces. And then another thing I did was remove the go-kart looking flag here, pull off that section, we don't need it, throw it away, and put the flag on like this. Looks much better in my opinion. Before we get started with the actual step-by-step building, there's one more quick change that I want to make, and that is to remove this second gold plate down here and replace it with one of these new bracket pieces. And let's do that on the other side real quick, and I know it kind of looks ugly and doesn't really go in with the color scheme, but it's okay because you're not going to see it in the final version anyway. Pull that out. And there we go. Let's put that down. So I'm not going to do a step-by-step tutorial for the hood. That was pretty basic. All I did was replace the corner tiles and whatever else was sitting in this section here with a giant tile, and then also filled in the gaps here with some 1x1 dark blue tiles. So there we go. That cleans up nicely. Now real quick, let's do the step-by-step build tutorial for the jet, the front of the car, and then the two side panels. And we'll meet back on the other side. And if you were able to follow those step-by-step tutorials, you should end up with something that looks a little bit like this. Kind of messy right now, but we'll go ahead and fix it all up. So first of all, for the front of the car, we're just going to plug that back into the Technic pieces here. We're going to take the hood piece and just reconnect that, then slot it down into place, and there you go. Now for the sides, those are going to be easy. This is not the side we want. We actually want this one here. We're going to turn it around and we're just going to plug it into place like it was. And the reason why this bracket is so important is because it supports this 1x4 plate, and without it your car is just going to fall to pieces, or parts of it are going to fall to pieces. Anyway, we plug that into place on the bottom. You just want to make sure that that latches in all the way because it tends to stick out a little bit from the studs there. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. I would recommend opening up the cockpit and securing the build like this, otherwise you're going to end up with a mess. And then again, just plug it into place. There are a lot of studs that need to be lined up, so it may be a little difficult at first, and it'll probably take a few tries before you can get it right. And again, we're going to smooth out the studs on the bottom here, make sure everything locks into place, and there we go. We'll close the hatch of the cockpit, push down this little piece, take the jet, and plug it in on top. And there you go, that is how you modify Jay's car. Alright, that is it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and do all that other good stuff. And if you want to see more of my content, please feel free to check out the other videos on my channel. And if there's something you want to see me build, feel free to leave a comment in the comments section below, and I will see what I can do. Again, that's all I have for you guys today, so I will see you next time.